Hello and welcome to Being Extraordinary. My name is Sarah Kent and I help women to connect to and create their dreams. Now, throughout our lives, we all make mistakes. Some of them are small and occasionally some of them may be monumental. The truth is that if we're growing and learning as human beings, mistakes are some of the best things that can happen for us. In this episode, I'm going to share a really simple way to help you learn from your mistakes so that you can continue to grow as a human being. Now, if you're a woman and you find the content of this video helpful, you're going to find a lot of value and support in my Facebook group, Being Extraordinary. There's a link in the video description to the group, and I'd love to see you over there. So, making mistakes. First off, if you're making mistakes, I salute you because this means that you are actually doing something. You're trying things out and you're creating in some way in your life. However, yes, when we make a mistake, it can often trigger so many unhelpful thoughts and feelings inside of us. Often the voice of our inner critics, and that voice can tell us all the different ways that we failed, how terrible we are, how we're stupid, how we're incompetent, how we looked foolish in front of all those people that saw us do that thing, and that we'll never be good enough. Sometimes we don't feel we've made a mistake. Sometimes we simply think we've failed and not met the mark in some way, and that's horrible. And this was actually something I struggled with as an ultra runner. I used to run 100-mile long or even longer foot races. And there's so many things that can go wrong in a race when that race lasts for 24 hours or longer. And even a simple mistake can end up in just not finishing. And this happened to me one of the times I ran the 145-mile race, the Grand Union Canal race, which runs from Birmingham to London. By the time I'd reached the 100-mile mark, for various reasons, which I know now but didn't know at the time, I could barely bend or flex my hips, and my legs felt as if they'd been dipped in acid. And at that 100-mile mark, there was a checkpoint, and I decided there to withdraw from the race. I was struggling to walk, let alone run, and I just knew that I would never meet the cut-offs for the next checkpoints going on. So I tapped myself out, I withdrew from the race, and instantly my inner critic was labeling me as a failure. And I was stuck in that space for well over a day until I managed to eventually catch up on sleep and ask myself what I'd learnt from the race. And I was able to identify the mistake that I'd made and thankfully not repeat it in future races. So we all know that we can learn from our mistakes, but how do you do that if the voice of your inner critic is simply too loud and won't shut up? Well, the first way we can do this is to quieten the voice of our inner critics. So learn to notice their voice when you hear any negative or disparaging thoughts about something that you've done or something that's happening. Learn to notice that voice and perhaps give them a name. And it could be whatever name you like. I'm not going to pick one. You pick your own name. You might even want to create an avatar for them. So what would your inner critic look like if you gave them an avatar? So when you hear that voice again, it's now easier to actually check in with them. What are they up to? So when you hear that voice, turn around and see that avatar and ask, what are you trying to do right now? How are you trying to help me in this moment? talk to them in your imagination and find out what their motivation is. Um, you could also ask, perhaps, what are you afraid of? What are you most afraid of? So once you've had that little conversation with them, simply thank them for their input and say, it's all right, I've got this covered. And then, as you can with avatars, you could simply try just dialing down the volume on their voice, or imagine maybe the avatar receding into space until they're tiny and you can't hear them at all. So that's one way to, well, connect with your inner critic and then modulate their voice. The second way, once you've understood your inner critic, is actually to connect with your inner ally. So as well as an inner critic, you also have hopefully you don't have an inner cat like my cat. I will continue. Where were we? So as well as an inner critic, you also have an inner ally. Now this inner ally is the kindest, wisest, most compassionate version of you. They love you just as you are, and they also know what support and insight you need to learn from a mistake. And another form this ally can take is that of your future self. And I often take my clients on a deep dive to connect with their future self. So they've always got this inner ally as a guide as they're working towards creating their dreams. So when you make a mistake, connect to your future self or your inner ally and ask them what they would do in this situation. What advice do they have for you? You could even ask them, how can you learn from what's happened? And actually connecting with your future self will also help support you in discovering how you can really learn from what's happened, as well as helping you to decide what to do next. So those are two simple ways to help you learn from your mistakes. Get to understand your inner critic and learn how to modulate, maybe dial down their voice, and also connect with your inner ally or your future self. I hope you found this helpful today, and I'd love to hear how it works for you when you put it into practice. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're a woman who has a dream and you would love to be in a community of other extraordinary women, excuse me, I'd love for you to join the Facebook group Being Extraordinary. I've put the link in the description below this video. Just request to join and I'll welcome you in personally once you've answered the questions and all the other bits that Facebook asks us to do. In the group, I share the knowledge and experience I've gained as a wild soul coach, and also what I learned from transforming my life and working with my clients over the years. And all of that is to help you on your journey as you are creating your dreams. There's also a free mini audio for you to download once you're in the group. I'd love to see you over there. I'm Sarah Kent. This is my cat. And until next time, be extraordinary.